Hello, hello, construction professionals. Welcome to the podcast where we flip the script on what it means to live, breathe, and lead construction today. In this podcast series, we unpack how great construction can really be when you lead with humanity, put people first, and drop the bullshit of the way it's always been done. Our world has changed, our conversations have changed, and it's time construction catches up. Eric, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you here. And I'm super excited. Today's conversation is truly dear to me. It's deep, it's exciting, and we're talking about flipping the script on construction, doing things differently, and leading with a people-centric approach. That's the whole reason that I've started this podcast, and it's an honor and pleasure to have you here. So thank you for taking the time on your day to be here.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So, there's a whole boatload of people out there, and they want to know a little bit about you. So before we unpack all the fun, exciting things within the professional world, tell us a bit about you as a human being.
Okay, well, I let's see. People don't usually ask me this much. I live in Sacramento, California. I've lived in the United States since about 1985. I'm originally from England, and moved around Europe when I was a kid. Moved to Sacramento in 1995 to be involved in a college Christian ministry. So I did that for about 20 years or so. And while working, and I launched my own business in 2013 and focus 99% of my time working with construction companies.
Awesome. And there's actually something super exciting that jumped out at me, right? 2013. And before 2013, you've been in the leadership development space.
Yeah.
So tell us about that journey between, the point prior, I suppose the point of prior to 2013 of starting your own business.
Sure. No, in 2004, I teamed up with a company that was doing leadership development. It's a worldwide leadership development franchise. And in 2004, I started doing that, and I was on the sales end of it. My first client was a construction company, LB Construction, which is a commercial framing company out here in Sacramento. They're still my client today. And so I didn't intend to get into construction in terms of working with contractors, but once I did, I really fell in love with working with construction companies because I think a couple of different things. I really appreciate the fact that someone can drive down the road and point at a building or, point at some infrastructure and say, I built that. I think there's a real value to that. I know the positive impact that construction has on the community and on the people who work in the companies. And I just love construction guys and gals. They're pretty straightforward, pretty simple. That's kind of the way I am. And I tend to resonate with them.
Yeah, thank you. And that's really exciting and really it hits home because it's really easy. I mean, the word leadership is thrown around today like a common buzzword, and it means different things to so many different people. And when we speak specifically about the construction world, it's that much more impactful. So you're going through this journey, 2004, 2013 hits. What happens then?
Well, it's interesting because in about 2008, as we all know, the Great Recession hit, and by 2010, the market desire for a one-year leadership course had kind of dissipated in my area, and so I went into a different industry for a couple of years, and that was agonizing. So, the folks that I was working for, they were good people, but it wasn't the right fit for me. And I actually ended up getting fired in early 2013 from this job. It was one of those nice firings, where they ask you to lunch and, hey, bring your laptop, by the way. And so I bought my laptop and my phone, and they took those and said, Eric, we need to move on. And if it was me in the leadership role, I probably would have fired me 6 months earlier because I just wasn't performing. It wasn't a fit for me. And so that was the final push that I needed to do something that I'd thought about for many, many years, which is start my own business. So I got fired on a Friday. On Monday, I started my own business. I went to call on my former clients who had done the leadership development program with me. And I walked in on an engineering company. They engineer bridges and design bridges. And one of the owners said, "Hey, Eric, we were just talking about you." He was holding up this book. It was called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And he said, "Would you do a workshop for us on this book?" And so, having just started my company, I'd never read the book. So, of course, I said yes. And I read the book. I did a workshop for them, and that was kind of the launching point of my business. And by, I would say, 2014, 15, I decided to niche down into construction specifically. And I've spent the last almost 10 years now working almost exclusively with construction companies.
So initially, it wasn't in construction per se. And when you're talking about that Friday to Monday shift, that Monday shift was like, okay, here I'm making an assumption, so kind of clarify if it's inaccurate. I'm going to take the work that comes, and it seemed like you walked in and somebody said, "Here's some work."
Yeah, and so that's an interesting thing, and I think that's one of the things that every entrepreneur figures out, right? Is they put themselves into the marketplace and begin to figure out where they fit. And so I was out there helping people with leadership development, strategic planning, team building, and it became evident really quickly based on my prior experience and just what was resonating with me personally that the construction was the niche that I should go after, that I should plant my flag in, and I began to build my reputation and my business focused on construction companies.
Oh my gosh, it's quite the story, right? Because it's just like, flip the script. You go from here I am Friday, and it seems like it came at. I love how you said, I would have fired myself 6 months ago. Yeah. So there was some sort of subconsciously something was already going on, and what struck me is when you walk into a client's office on Monday morning, they're there for you. Yeah. And if there's something that's super important to take away, it's people respond to, listen to, are there for the person, the leader that's in front of them, the human being that's in front of them, not the organization that you represent. Yeah,
it's interesting. I do want to go back to that one point about I would have fired me 6 months earlier, because this is a conversation that I have with my clients on a regular basis. Is the CEO of a construction company will talk to me about maybe someone in a senior position who's not a fit for the organization. And so I ask them this question. I say, hey, listen, if this guy came in and they said, hey, I appreciate working with you, but I found a position with another company. What would you say? If you say, hold on a second, let's renegotiate and let's make sure you stay, that's one thing. But if you would shake hands with that person and allow them to go down the road, then that's an indication to you that their time with your company should be at an end. And whether you move them on today or in a month from now, we should not be having the same conversation in 6 months about this person, because it's evident that they are not a fit for your organization.
That's a huge, let's capture that for a second, folks. There's a huge takeaway. Taking a true temperature reading, there's an excellent question. If I'm working for a company and, if the guy walks in and said, okay, if Jonathan quits today, are you going to be upset? Yep. And the answer is no. Well, then you've answered your question. Do we want to invest the time, energy, and resources to help him, to educate him, to train him, to whatever the next phase is? Then the answer right there is no. Yes. No. So part ways, shake hands, thank you very much, and move on. Huge. And sometimes it becomes easy to stay within the, I don't like this word and I'm going to use it purposefully, the status quo. Well, I'll just deal with it. There's still costs, there's still stresses, there's deal with what? Deal with the agony, deal with the use that person as a scapegoat, and, it spirals out of control from there. So interesting. Well, you've been doing this for decades now. Yep. And when you talk about this, I'm super curious. Is there a common theme? Is there a common narrative that shows up when you talk about problems that construction companies face? What's the biggest thing out there?
I think all things being equal in terms of technical ability, the biggest challenge that construction companies have is communication. Construction by its nature, it's very easy for it to be siloed, and there's silos in a number of different ways. Every company has silos internally between, let's say, the field and the office. So I've got my project team, I've got my guys in the field, and there can be silos there, and there can be conflicts that occur. There can be silos between me as a general contractor and my project partners, silos between me and my clients, and these silos create communication gaps, which then result in frustrations and challenges both internally and externally for a construction company.
Okay, so communication is a large word, but really, if you dive into that a little bit more granular, Is there specifics that you
Yes.
see?
Yeah. So, and this is one of the key things that I work with my clients on. Communication is something that has to be initiated by leaders. And a leader has to be very clear on the messages that they need to communicate to their teams so that their teams are performing at the highest possible level. And I have a very simple way of helping people to remember this, and I call it the EAR framework. So if you think about how EAR is spelt, and I know this sounds a little cheesy. I always feel a little cheesy when I share this because it's so, kind of simple. But EAR is EAR. Okay, so as a leader, you need to remember that because E, that stands for encouragement. And the phrase to remember with encouragement is you can do it.
Okay.
And then the A, that stands for accountability. And the phrase you need to remember then is did you do it? And then the R stands for recognition. And the phrase to remember with recognition is you did it. And so there's three messages that a leader has to communicate consistently with their people. The first one is you can do it. The second one is did you do it? And the third one is you did it. Encouragement, accountability, recognition. And all you have to do to remember that is to grab your ear.
Interesting. Is there? I want to know a little bit more about that.
Sure.
I really want to. So, is there a scenario? Can you take me through a brief scenario?
Sure.
Even using me as an example.
Absolutely. So let's say I'm a project executive, and I'm leading 3 or 4 project managers.
Sure.
Okay. And a project manager has a new project that they're working on. Perhaps it's not a project type that they have a lot of experience in. And so I take the time to sit with the project manager, go over the plans, make sure they've met with the estimator and there's a good handoff that's happened. Maybe they have a superintendent and foreman who are more experienced in this particular project type. And so they have to get together with them and make sure everyone's on the same page. And when all of that has occurred, I can look at that project manager and I can encourage them and say, now you can do it. You have the resources that you need. You have the information that you need. You can do it. It's on you. But I've earned the right to tell them that you can do it because I've given them the resources and the support that they need. Perhaps if there's any training that they need, I've given them that as well. You can do it.
I've given you all the tools. Time to rock and roll, Jonathan.
That's right.
Okay. So now... Accountability.
Accountability. Okay, so I'm meeting with you as I'm a project executive, so I'm going to meet with you, let's say, every week, every other week. I'm going to have my one-on-one meeting with you. And Jonathan, I'm going to sit down with you and I'm going to ask you about how is this particular part of the project going? Okay, how's your relationship with the superintendent? How's your relationship with the client? How's the schedule? Are you looking ahead 2 weeks and making sure you've got everything under control? I'm holding you accountable. I'm asking you, did you do it? Okay, and let's say you come back to me and say, well, I'm having an issue with this, or I didn't do this particular task. So I'm going to ask you then, if you didn't do it, why not? Okay. If not, why not? And how can I help? So did you do it? If not, why not? How can I help? So my job as a leader is to explore with you why you didn't do what you're supposed to do. Because I'm assuming, if I'm holding you accountable, I'm assuming that I've delegated effectively to you. And when I've delegated effectively, I've taken into account 3 things. The first one is that you are capable of doing what I'm asking you to do. The second one is that I have been clear in my communication of what it is that I want, including deadlines. And then the third one, and I think this is missed sometimes, is that you actually have the capacity to do what I'm asking you to do. And what I mean by capacity is the bandwidth. And sometimes what happens in construction companies is that the A players get overwhelmed with too much work and their performance then begins to go down. Because I see my A players and I say, okay, I know he can take care of this, that, and the other thing. And the A player is always saying, yes, I can do it, yes, I can do it, until he can't.
Right.
Until he gets overcapacitated.
Right.
So I've delegated, I'm clear, they have capability, they have capacity, and so now I'm holding them accountable. Did you do it? If not, why not? How can I help?
Okay, I want to pull the handbrake here because this is an important step, actually, even before the ear. And I grab an ear, and it's always going to. Thank you for that. It's always going to stick now. What just illuminated for me was even before I get to the ear analogy. There, I'm going to use that word analogy. It's the 3 C's, right?
Yes.
It's C cubed.
Yep.
Does Jonathan have the capability to do it?
Yep.
Right. Am I clear? And if I'm vividly and transparently clear with here's what I expect. So can he do it? And capacity. And capacity, I love the way you unpack that. It's not necessarily, I'm sure this ties into it, but it's not necessarily, does he have the skill set, the knowledge to do it? It's also one layer deeper, which sometimes gets overlooked.
It does.
Right? Does he have the bandwidth, or is he already at capacity? And in construction, sometimes we overlook that and dump it on him. He'll do it. And then the project fails or things happen, egos enter the space, people beat on their chest, and they point fingers and say, well, Jonathan, you failed. Okay, I'm not an idiot per se. It's not that I couldn't do it. It's that competing priorities stepped into play.
Exactly.
So there's a huge thing, right, as a leader, C cubed, folks, right?
Yep.
And the biggest one that jumped out at me is capacity.
Yes.
And then if we get to so now the accountability piece of the ear, I'm transitioning back to the ear piece. The accountability piece comes much more clear to me the way you describe it.
Yes.
Because you would have already checked in internally whether you're the sole person in charge or there's a team of individuals, you would have checked in with the other leaders to say, hey, can Jonathan do this? And if all the C's are checked, okay, so now I'm back to accountability. And, okay, Jonathan, this didn't occur. What happened and how can I help? Huge.
Very good. Yep.
Huge, right? Because no person wants to feel like less than.
Yes.
Nobody wants to feel like they failed.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And then, so now, and I'm excited for this part because I think that this is going to be super exciting. Take me to the final R, recognition.
So recognition. So assuming that I've encouraged them, you can do it. Accountability. Did you do it? They achieve something. Perhaps they hit a milestone, or they bring a project in on time and under budget with safety, and you guys have made money. So you recognize them. You did it. And with recognition, this is the key. Recognition needs to be specific. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what I mean. It's not just, hey, Jonathan, good job. It's, Jonathan, the way you handle that conversation with the client was excellent because you helped them to understand why the change order was occurring and why we had to build them for that change order. And you did that while maintaining the relationship with the client. So it's specific. Then the recognition has to be personal. And so I have to take into account who you are. So some people, they enjoy public recognition. They like to be brought up in front of the team and patted on the back so everyone can see them. Other people, they feel uncomfortable with that type of recognition. And so something more personal and more direct is perhaps appropriate. So I need to consider how you like to be recognized. And then the third thing is I need to be consistent. And there's a couple of different things here that's important. We're not playing recreational sports anymore. So I don't just recognize someone for showing up and doing their job, okay? You don't get a participation medal. I recognize someone for going above and beyond. But what can happen with my A players sometimes is that I'm so used to them going above and beyond that I forget to recognize them. And so I need to be consistent in recognizing my A players and not just assuming because they're A players, they don't need that recognition. So I need to be specific, I need to be personal, and I need to be consistent in my recognition.
Beautiful. And, the thing that jumps out at me, I want to stay in this space for a second because it's super exciting. We're talking about level 3 gratitude here, folks. This is huge, right? There's the big difference between, hey, thank you. This, for me, this is an instrumental piece in every sort of relationship in life. It's one thing to say, hey, thanks, Eric, for showing up. No, thanks, Eric, for showing up because you made a big difference and here's the impact downstream.
Absolutely.
And, right, and then you're consistent with it. But the other thing, I'm super curious when you talk about that personal piece. So again, we had the recognition has three layers to it: specific, personal, and then consistent. Cool. Yes. I want to put a pin in the personable thing for a second and ask a question. How do you know? How do you know?
That's a good question. The answer is you have to get to know people.
Sure.
You have to get to know them. One way you can actually do is, if you get to know someone as they're in your company for a while, you understand what some of their personal interests are. If I know that you like to hunt, or you like to fish, or you like to go to wineries, or you like to go to sports, and maybe perhaps part of that recognition is I'm going to personally give you something that I know you're going to love.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take the time to get to know you in order to do that.
This is huge, right? And I want to stay in the construction space because more times than not, we assume, I'm going to throw Jonathan a gift card to the LCBO, in Ontario LCBO. He doesn't drink, or
right.
I'm going to treat him to the gun range. But he's never held a gun in his life. He doesn't know how to shoot that's not his thing. So here we go, folks. Like asking questions, ask and pay attention. Actually, give a damn to the people in front of you, and you learn these things.
Yep.
And for those who say, well, I don't have the time, energy to do that. Well, but so right now we're talking about how it translates downstream to business.
Yeah.
Right. So I love that. Thank you. Thank you. So, C cubed, capable, clear, capacity. All right. So Jonathan can do it. And now, the task is there. So encouragement, accountability, and recognition.
Yep.
You now made it super simple.
Yep.
2 years, people.
That's
Grab
right.
whichever one you like, but let's remember about it. That is interesting. So you've done this so many times. The knowledge, you're a guru in this space. You're an expert. You've been doing this for nearly 2 decades. And I want to unpack something because you have a wonderful podcast, Construction Genius. And if I recall on it, there was a piece of it, or there was an episode exactly, but you talked about meetings specifically.
Yeah.
And in it, there were a bunch of steps on how to sort of, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically amplify your meetings, make them useful. And I think that this is important to transition to right now after we're talking about the EAR acronym. So
yes.
You and I are having a meeting. We're going to talk about this stuff. How do you make that meeting meaningful, impactful, and useful?
Yes. So in construction is a team sport, and problems are occurring all the time. So if you don't like problems, then construction is not for you.
I love that. Imagine when I pull a hammer. If you don't like problems, construction isn't for you. Love it.
Right.
Thank you for that.
I always remember what one of my clients said to me once, one of my executive coaching clients, he said to me, construction, it sucks, but it's fun. And so the need in every construction company is for teams of people to be able to identify their problems and solve them. And that requires people coming together and talking about the problem. That requires a meeting. Now, one of the great challenges that a lot of construction leaders have, particularly people in senior roles, is that they bring together a bunch of people with a specific problem. They want to discuss it, but they can't seem to get to an agreement on how to solve the problem. And so they think one of two things. Either I suck at facilitating meetings, or my team sucks and they just have got too much ego going on here and they can't reach agreement. And my conviction is that neither of those things is true. The problem is not that you're bad at facilitating meetings or that your team is just divided. It's because of the structure of the meeting.
Okay.
And so I use a structure that I teach my clients to use in their companies. And it's very straightforward. The first thing you have to do is you have to identify the problem clearly. Okay, so let's say I'm having a problem with safety on my job sites.
Okay.
I have to identify that problem clearly. And the way that I identify my problems is through metrics and conversations. So we're always tracking things in construction. I'm tracking production. I'm tracking estimated versus actual. I'm tracking my safety. I'm tracking my quality, how many times do I have to go back out and redo work, all that kind of stuff. So identify the problem. Then what I need to do as a part of that identification of the problem is I need to select the right meeting participants to be involved in the meeting. So there should be no courtesy invites, because sometimes in corporations, what can happen is people just get invited to meetings and they're sitting there and they've got nothing to contribute, nothing to say. So I only invite people who will come and bring me some perspectives and help me to solve the problem. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have a diverse group, because perhaps you have a problem in the field, but you want to bring in people from estimating, project management, as well as your superintendent or your foreman, because the different perspectives will give you some insights perhaps into how to solve the problem that you wouldn't get if you just kept it to guys and gals from the field.
Sure.
So you bring a diverse group in. Right. The second thing you do then is you set the ground rules for the meeting. You set the ground rules for the meeting. And so these are the ground rules. First one is we take our crack pipes. These are our crack pipes right here. And we put them away. No crack pipes, no phones in the meetings. Okay. Second thing is everyone in the meeting fully participates. No one gets to sit in the corner with their arms folded. Okay? If you're in the meeting, you're expected to participate. And the third ground rule is we don't mock anyone else's ideas in these meetings. The purpose of the meeting is to come up with ideas, and perhaps ones that we've never thought of. And you know what we're like when we hear ideas sometimes that we don't like or we've never thought of. We may belittle that other person, and that is not what we do in the meeting. So, undistracted time, everyone participates, no one gets mocked. Okay? Those are the ground rules. Then what you do is after framing the idea, so and this is the way that I frame. I teach my guys to frame the question that they're looking to answer. And it's like this. And the words I'm going to use here are very intentional. So let's say it's a safety issue. This is what people do. They'll write on the whiteboard or on a flip chart, in what specific ways can we improve safety on our job sites in the next 90 days? Okay? Now, let me just break that down. I'm going slowly here because this is very important. So the most important word in that question is what? What do you think the most important word in that question is? In what specific ways can we improve safety on our job sites in the next 90 days?
What, to me, jumps out as an important word. Like, what can we actually do? Okay.
So in my experience, for these types of meetings, the most important word is specific. And let me tell you why. Because the purpose of this meeting, so some meetings you go into and you know what you're going to do? You're just going to talk. You're not necessarily looking for an action item out of it. You're just talking. And that's fine. There's those types of meetings. This meeting, you're looking to get out of this meeting with an action plan. And so the more specific I can be in the ideas that I can generate, the more actionable I will be. Okay? So you frame the challenge and make sure that everyone understands the question. And then what you do is you give everyone 2 minutes to brainstorm as many ideas as they can come up with in answer to the question. So you have them write as many ideas as they can come up with. And you tell them this is green light thinking. There's no bad ideas. If the idea pops in your head, you write it down and get another one. If an idea pops, you write it down and get another one. You're looking to generate a quantity of ideas. You don't care about the quality just yet.
Sure.
Okay. So after you've generated a list of ideas, in response to that question, you then ask all the participants after 2 minutes to look at their ideas and pick their top 2. So put a check mark next to your top 2 ideas. So every participant has generated a list of ideas, and now they have what they think are their top 2 ideas. Okay. Now what you do is you go around the room and you gather everyone's ideas. And let me tell you how to do it. You start with the first person and you ask them for their one idea. You don't get 2 ideas from them, 1. And sometimes you'll have people who are enthusiastic and they'll want to tell you all their ideas at once. You just say, no, just give me one idea. You write the idea on the board, ask clarifying questions if it's not clear what they're saying. And then once you've got that first idea, move on to the next person and get their idea. So let's say you have 5 people in the room. You'll have 5 ideas on the board. And if you're the leader of the meeting and you want to participate and give your ideas, you put your idea up last. Okay?
Okay.
Then you go back around the room in a reverse fashion. So the person who shared their idea last, their first idea last, they get to share their second idea first. And you go back around the room and get the second idea. Now, at this point, you may be getting some duplicate ideas. So all you do is ask them to share another one of the ideas on the list. Okay? Am I being clear so far?
Yeah. Absolutely. This is beautiful.
Okay. So now, if you have 5 people in the room, let's say you now have 10 to 12 ideas on the board. Once you've gathered everyone's ideas, you just ask them, hey, does anyone else have any ideas that they want to put up on the board? Okay. Now, there's an old saying about meetings. When all was said and done, a lot was said and nothing was done. Right? So I have a list of 10 to 12 ideas on the board. I'm assuming that those are pretty good ideas because I've got the right people in the room. They know what they're talking about. And I might have 12 killer ideas on how to improve my safety in the next 90 days. But I know that I am not going to be able to execute on all 12 of those ideas. It's just not going to happen. So this is what you do. You distribute 4 votes to everyone in the room. Let's say it's 12 ideas on the board. So a third of 12 is 4.
Okay.
And you ask them to look at the list of 12 ideas on the board and pick their top 4.
All right.
They can't stack their votes. They have to pick 4 of the 12 ideas. So everyone picks their ideas, and then you go around the room and you ask them. This is how you do it. I'm going very slowly here because I want the audience to really learn this. You say, idea number 1, by a show of hands, how many people picked this idea? And then you make a note of that. And this is what you'll find. You'll go through the list, and 1 or 2 ideas, and perhaps 3 will come to the surface as the ones that get the most votes. Okay?
Got it. Wow.
So, for instance, in safety, perhaps the one idea that will pop the most, there will be like 2 ideas, like do job walks more frequently and have the morning tailgate consistently.
Sure.
And that'll pop to the front. Okay. So then what's really interesting then is typically you will have one idea that gets the most votes. And so then you look at everyone in the room and you put your hand up like this and you say this. By a show of hands, if we committed to executing on this one idea in the next 90 days, how many people would support that idea? And you know what will happen? 99% of the time, everyone will raise their hands and you will have unanimous agreement on how to solve the problem.
Now you've got buy-in. Wow.
Yeah. And so you then very simply, you build a plan around that. So if I'm going to do job walks more consistently, I'm going to ask, okay, who's going to be accountable for those job walks? Who's the person accountable to make sure the job walks happen? Let's make sure that gets done. And I'm going to follow up with that person every week for the next 90 days to make sure we execute on that one idea.
Wow.
So I've done 2 things through that. What I've done is I facilitated a meeting, and I promise you, if you do this the way I've described it, this will take you no more than 30 to 45 minutes for the portion that I've just described. The action planning could take another 15 minutes. You're out of the meeting in 60 minutes. And you'd have taken a bunch of people with a bunch of different ideas. You'd have gotten their input, and people always work harder for their ideas than your ideas. And you would have brought a diverse group of people together to an agreement on how to solve the toughest challenges that burden your business.
Wow. Wow. That's beautiful. And if I look back onto the ground rules, this checks all the boxes in the ground rules, right?
Yes.
We talk about parking our phones. If our phones were there, you're allowing distractions in. People are not thinking properly, right?
Yep.
And, there was something buzzing around when you said it, and I was holding on to this thought, and you so vividly answered it, was what happens because there's so many times where you walk into a meeting and participation is negligible, and you walk out of the meeting and go, that was useless, a waste of my time.
Yes.
How do you engage participation? You just described it so vividly.
Yep.
And now you've set the foundation for this is one way that we're going to execute our meetings effectively, efficiently, and you're creating that connection. So no, there's not that people walking away going, my idea wasn't heard, or the old adage of, the leader walks in the room and says, okay, I got this great idea. Here's how we're going to solve it. What do you guys think? Well, they're not going to say anything at that point, because why am I going to rock the boat?
That's right. And so that's one of the keys as a leader. Yeah. Let me just say this. As the leader, you want people to come up with the ideas.
Yeah.
You want them to generate the ideas so that you get their buy-in. Because, again, like I just said, people work harder for their ideas than they do for your ideas. So use a meeting structure that gets their ideas out on the board so that everyone can take a look at them and everyone can decide together what we're going to execute on.
Holy smokes. Right. And now they've got their buy-in. And by the way, there's when you say no mocking, the opposite of that is like there's a freedom of space.
Yes.
Right. So there's a freedom of space too. So I love the brainstorm idea. You can do that however you choose fit, in the way you did it, described it was awesome. Right. Write it down. I'm not judging Eric's ideas.
Right.
Right. Because the whole intention was a brainstorm ideas. And you're going to get 10 bad ones and you only need one good one.
Right.
So I'm not going to say, well, that's it. And that amplifies the output of others. That amplifies the, quiet Jonathan in the corner who never says anything, but is highly intelligent and full of great ideas that we never hear from because he's so suppressed.
Right.
So now you've just broken those patterns. You flipped the script. This is leading construction differently. This is illuminating what's possible. This is flipping the script in the way it's always been done. This takes away that ego, the banging on the table, the who screwed up, who are we going to crucify, who are we going to pin, how much does this cost, and who are we going to backcharge?
Yep. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Wow.
What's interesting, though, it's interesting you said when you get those ideas on the board, what's interesting I've found many times is there's actually probably about 4 or 5 really, really good ideas. But I'm saying, not that those other ideas that I don't pick are bad necessarily. It's just that I know that I don't have the capacity, like we talked about earlier, to do every single idea. What I might do is execute on this one idea, and then 90 days from now, come back, look at my list again, and pick the next idea and execute on that for 90 days.
Yeah. Park the idea for now. But there's the other thing that caught my attention too, right, is that I love that in the next 90 days, like we are time specific, we are time bound. And when we go back to the construction metrics where we measure everything, you measure every widget in, every widget out. Now we've got time constraints. You got 90 days, team. We have 90 days to solve this.
Yeah.
And at least if it's not solved, at least we have momentum. We have progress. We can measure it, where we at, and reevaluate it. Hey, listen, we're 60 days in. It sucks. It's not working. Okay. Reconfigure.
Yes.
Right? But not only, we had a safety meeting and 6 months went by, what changed? Nothing.
Yep.
Right? So
yeah, and I like the 90 day.
There it is, right?
I like the 90-day framework too, because it's not too long so that it goes onto the back burner, but it's not too short where I can't build a little bit of momentum and make some serious progress.
Well, thank you. And you oftentimes take this is the work you do.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
People will contract you out and say, Eric, come in and help us lead differently, help us do things differently. Mm-hmm. It's pretty powerful here to sit here in the same space and occupy this conversation. And thank you for creating the time and space to do this. It brings up a curiosity question, right? What advice would you give to our construction professionals out there to help them navigate through choosing the right consultant? And what's the mistake that's sort of commonly seen out there? Because here's the reality. We're so inundated with distractions. I mean, you get pinged every second of the day like, hey, this guy's selling, flipping. How do you sift through that? What have you learned?
Okay, so there's 3 things. If you're going to bring in someone from the outside, first they have to know construction. They have to know construction. And they have to know construction in view of the specific challenge that you have.
Right.
Okay, so if you have a challenge with let's say your accounting, or your finances. Construction finances and accounting are pretty unique. And so you don't want to just bring in a generic financial consultant or generic CPA type consultant. You want to bring in someone who understands construction, who understands the WIP, who understands, you know, the just the various things that you have to be able to do, who understands underbilling and overbilling and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so you must bring in someone who understands construction. And so when people bring me in, for instance, they know, you know, that I'm not like a technical expert, but I understand in my bones the communication challenges and the leadership challenges that construction companies have. And I know that what they need to be able to do is to bid work, plan work, build work, and get paid. And so I understand enough so that I'm able to speak to them in their language and understand what they're saying. So you've got to bring in someone who understands construction. Second thing, they have to fit with your culture. Okay, and that's one thing that's really important. So I know that I'm not a fit for every construction company. I know that. Because some people, they listen to my stuff and they're like, yeah, Eric, that's just not for me. And that's totally cool.
Yeah.
Whereas other people will say, Eric, what you're saying is exactly what we say. I'd like you to come and help us with our leadership. So make sure that the person fits with your culture. And then the third thing is run away from any consultant who offers you a magic pill. There are no magic pills. There is only hard work.
I'm laughing because it's like, there's no magic pill. There's
There's no magic pill.
And we hear it all the time. Drink this water and you're going to feel 100 times better.
Nope. There's no magic pill. There's only hard work. There's only hard work. And the purpose of having a consultant come in, and this is what I find is really important, is having that outside voice who can perhaps see things that you don't see because you're in the fishbowl, right? Yeah. And you don't necessarily see the gunk that's floating in the fishbowl, but the outside person can look in and say, hey, did you see this gunk? So you want that outside voice, but also someone who can be a sounding board for you. Yeah. Because many times you already know the answer to your problems. You just need someone to talk to about those problems and to confirm back to you the answer, and then to give you simple frameworks that you can use to help to solve the problem.
My gosh, this is beautiful, right? And there's the thing, something that sort of jumped out at me, especially with the third point, is like there's no magic pill, it's only hard work. Sometimes I think the blind spot is that we're going to hire consultant X and they're going to do all the work for us. No, you have to do the work.
Yes.
You have to do the work. They're there to support you. They're there to give you the frameworks, the tools, the techniques, the resources, whatever it is. You got to do the work.
Yep.
Right? It's like, hey, I'm going to tell you how to score the goals. I'm not going to score the goals for you.
Yep.
You got to score the goals.
Yep.
And there's a big thank you, right? And look, so subject matter expert, bring in the right person.
Yes.
Do they fit your culture? And I love that because sometimes there's probably a lot of times that there's a mismatch. And that's not even checked.
Yeah.
Like, what's our culture? And does Eric fit that? Yeah, he does. All right, then we're there, right? We're there.
Yep.
We're there because we're willing to do the work. And if they're at the point where they're going to hire a consultant, let's. I use the word loosely. Let's hope that they know that it ain't going to be rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns. It's going to suck at times. Yeah. And after the struggles, where the growth's going to emerge.
Mm-hmm. And then what you also want to do is you want to make sure that you're clear with the consultant on what the goal of the engagement is. And that you're holding them accountable for those goals and that they actually want to be held accountable.
Yeah.
And if the relationship is not working, then you need to be honest about that and not waste your time or your money in a relationship that's not working.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Let's not beat around the bush and say, look, let's separate. It's not working here.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. It's so exciting. Like, you've taken all this knowledge, all this work, and you've created a podcast that's super impactful, Construction Genius, and thank you for sharing your messages with the world. Mm-hmm. You then take that and now you transition that into a book. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about the book. How did the book come to be?
The book is simply a way to condense a lot of the stuff that I've shared on my podcast over the years into a simple format that people can digest. So, the podcast, I've got hundreds of hours of podcast information, and I took the very best of that and distilled it into the book, specifically in terms of leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing. And the reason why is because people need hands-on, practical, simple advice that they can take and implement in their businesses right away. And that's what the book is packed with. And
we can get this book on Amazon. How
Amazon?
How fast can we get?
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. Hold on a second. I'll. Yeah. So here's the book right here. You can go on Amazon and get it. You can also go to my website, constructiongeniusbook.com, and check out a little bit more about it. And I really like the book because it's, again, very simple. It's very effective. It's very hands-on. It's very practical. It's designed for you to be able to take it. And this is what the feedback they're giving me. One company is going to use it for their onboarding process when they bring in new leaders. Another company, they purchased a whole bunch of books for their leaders. I actually had a chance to go by their office because they're local to me here, and I signed each book for each leader. And it was really cool. And they're going to go chapter by chapter through the book and discuss it in their leadership meetings. So it's a it's a really neat way to be able to use the information and leverage it through your company. And each book is it's $20 for a soft cover. So if you invest $100 buying 10 copies, then you can use that and leverage it in your company very, very easily.
Yeah, beautifully said, right? And there's something to be proud of. It's so tangible that it's going to be a part of our onboarding process. Yeah. And we're going to go chapter by chapter, step by step. Folks, this is the whole thing, right? The stuff that Eric's talking about, it's tangible. It's real. He's given us actual mechanisms to say, if you follow this step, it's going to make sense.
Yep.
Grab your ear. Here's what it's going to represent. Here's the steps to a meeting. So, super cool, right? In chapter 3 of your book, which is talking about high performers.
Yes.
I'm super curious. Is there a general description? High performers, everybody's different. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting there. I think with high performance, what high performers understand is they understand the few tasks within their realm of responsibility that if they do it with real excellence, it will have the most impact upon their job and on the performance of the company. And they concentrate on those tasks.
Interesting. So it can become very different from organization to organization.
It can be, yeah. Yeah, so there's an illustration that I use. It's a story of a woman named Mary. She was actually a young girl at the time. At 13, she set a goal to break the world record in the 200-meter butterfly. She was a swimmer. Okay. And she was a good swimmer at that time. But she made 2 changes as a result of her goal of breaking the world record in the 200-meter butterfly. The first thing she did is she started showing up on time to practice. So this is a 13-year-old, right? So practice for swimmers, they always practice in the morning, like 4:35 in the morning. So she made a commitment to show up on time. And then the second thing, and this is why I talk about the few tasks, she made a slight technical adjustment in her swimming style by touching at the end of each lap with 2 hands instead of 1 hand at the end of the pool. At the when they do the little flip, a little turn. Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm not a swimming expert, but I read this article and it was really interesting because apparently by touching with 2 hands instead of 1, it speeds you up, which is a little counterintuitive because you might think touch with 1 hand and get out of there, right? But no, it's 2 hands is more effective. So she made those 2 tweaks. She didn't necessarily increase the volume of the swimming she was doing. She just started showing up on time, a little more disciplined, and changed her technique slightly. And as a result of doing that, she was able to improve her performance. And when she was 14, she broke the world record in the 200-meter butterfly. And this is Mary Meyer. She won 3 gold medals at the 1984 LA Olympics in swimming. My point being with this story is that achieving high performance isn't necessarily something that's extremely complicated if you're able to identify the few things that you need to concentrate on that will give you the most leverage. Okay? So if I'm an executive, for instance, one of the ways that I can leverage myself most effectively is in the quality of the meetings I have with my direct reports. Yeah. So if I can get better at doing a one-on-one meeting with my direct reports, I can see an almost instant improvement in their performance and therefore in the performance of the projects that they're responsible for. So I might need to concentrate on getting better at those one-on-one meetings. That's just one example of how to achieve high performance. And the way that I break it down is really simple. I ask people, okay, you tell me, what are the top 3 outcomes that you're supposed to achieve in your position? So as a project manager, it might be safety, productivity, and quality. Okay? All right. Now,
sure.
Pick the most important one. So let's say for this person, it's quality. So quality is the most important one. So then I'll ask him or her, what are the top 3 tasks that lead to that outcome? And they'll tell me what those top 3 tasks are. Then I'll ask them, which is the most important task? And they'll identify one task. Okay? So they've got their most important outcome, and they've got their most important task that leads to that most important outcome. And then I'll just go back to the problem solving that we talked about earlier. I'll ask them, in what specific ways can you improve your performance of the most important task that leads to the most important outcome? And so they generate a list of ideas. I ask them to pick their top idea. And then I say, okay, that idea, you need to execute on that. Concentrate on improving in that area the execution of your most important task that leads to your most important outcome. And that's how you will achieve higher performance.
Beautiful. And, coming full circle, it's all internal. They know the answers. You just got to help dig.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Help them get there.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then if I'm working with them and I see, maybe they don't understand, that's where I can help them out a little bit. So maybe they don't know that I need to touch with 2 hands at the end of the pool. And I need to point that out to them so that they can then begin to execute on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, and there's where your subject matter expertise comes in.
Exactly.
That's why you hire the right expert. Because, they're going to help you get there. And sometimes you just need a little bit of, clarity.
Exactly.
Clarity. That's all it is. So thank you.
Uh-huh.
I love this. You've been doing this for so long. I want to ask a tremendously high-level question. And in the construction world today, from everything you've seen, everything you've done, everything you've touched, felt, and been involved in your opinion, what's one thing construction needs more of?
Communication. Simply. Communication. Yeah. Yep.
So simple.
Yep.
Right? So simple. And thank you. You've shared a whole bunch of nuggets, tangible nuggets, real world nuggets, metrics, checklists. Guys, here's how to do it. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to go through that. Thank you for sharing the knowledge that you've compiled on your podcast, in your book, and that you've gained over the years and transferred to others. It's huge. It's meaningful.
Yep. My pleasure.
I have a couple of fun questions.
Sure.
Because we like flipping the script on things. So all your life experiences. Here's the question. If you could teach children today one message, what's the one thing you would teach them?
It is more blessed to give than to receive.
Right.
If you want to be happy, spend more time giving than getting.
So beautiful, especially in a world where we're inundated with, get, achieve, go, sit back, pull the handbrake, give a little bit more.
Yep.
What do you think your future self will remember about who you are today?
That's a tough question. I really, that was a good question because I thought about this a little bit. I think what the future self would remember is that I've made a good start, but I've still got room to grow.
I've made a great start, made a good start. I've still got room to grow.
Yeah.
Super cool. All right, 3 rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to mind. Leading construction today is?
Really challenging.
Really challenging. The best part of construction is?
Working together with a team to get neat stuff done.
Oh, that's cool. And finally, construction could be different if we?
That's a good one. Construction could be different if we were more consistent in communicating with one another.
Yeah. Wow. And I love that consistent word, right? Because how many times does it show up? I've communicated, I did this, consistently? Consistency here, folks.
Yep.
Biggest thing.
Yep.
Thank you. Eric, true pleasure. How do people get in contact with you? Where can we find you?
You can find me at constructiongenius.com. That's my website. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm there pretty regularly. It's LinkedIn. It's dull, but it's effective. And it's a great place to connect with people. And so, yeah, those are the 2 places. LinkedIn, constructiongenius.com. And then my podcast, as you've mentioned a few times, I appreciate it, is Construction Genius. And then, of course, the book, constructiongeniusbook.com.
Yeah, get in touch. Eric, thank you very much. It's a true honor, a pleasure. Thanks for taking the time, creating the space, and having real world, amazing conversations that can make a difference. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Eric.